That was you? How did you go from being the celebrated lead singer of a rock band to becoming a rabbi living in Israel? Why did he quit?
We had a blow-up meeting at some restaurant in LA where they all got to yell at me and scream at me and curse me out and tell me how much they were upset. I never felt that I made a mistake.
You did burn bridges though when you left.
Yes, those bridges never got repaired.
Hi everybody, it's Aryeh Finger. Welcome back to another episode of the Jewish and Joyful Podcast. It's been so long and we're back. Baruch Hashem, we're back. I have a wild, powerful, crazy episode here for you today, so stay tuned. I sat down with Rabbi Moshe Gersht. Rabbi Moshe Gersht, if you see pictures of him, you're going to hear about him. You won't believe his transformation. He went from being the lead singer and guitarist of a rock band in LA and performing in front of thousands of people to being a rabbi in Israel. We talked about his journey, we talked about addiction, we talked about life, struggles, and we also got very deep into finding meaning in life, so you're going to love this episode. Make sure to stick around to the end of this episode for some surprises. A big shout out to all of you who reached out. It means so much for all the feedback, and hopefully we'll get to post more after Pesach. Stay tuned to hear more. Also, as I always say, I have the worst consistency of posting, so if you want to know when I put our next episode, please subscribe. This way you get a notification. You find out. You don't want to miss it, right? So please subscribe wherever you're watching this. Subscribe. And if you could comment where you live, which city you live in, it'll be amazing. A big thank you to our sponsors. We're getting more about them. Enjoy this special episode with the one, the only, Moshe Gersht. This episode is brought to you by Twillory, Ohr Olam, and Colel Chabad. By Moshe Gersht, thank you so much for coming on. Looking so forward to this conversation and for everyone to hear your unbelievable, powerful story and journey. Thank you for coming on. What was life like as young Moshe Gersht?
Well, Aryeh, thanks so much for having me. And young Moshe Gersht was young Theo Gersht. I grew up in Southern California, in LA. And my family was very traditional. My father was Israeli who moved to LA in his early 20s after his time in the service. Met my mom, and they started a quiet Jewish life. And when my grandfather passed away when I was 6, my father started saying Kaddish. He started going to shul every day. That was really the beginning of the shift in our home from a more traditional Jewish life to a you would call it more Orthodox or more religious life. But I'll say that along the way, regardless of how connected we were to Orthodox Judaism, spirituality was very, very strong in our home. I was raised like a pretty run-of-the-mill Jewish LA kid, trying to, figure out my way in this world. And by the time I was in high school, I was in a Yeshiva high school.
And so what were your teenage years like?
The teenage years were great. Teenage was awesome. I really enjoyed being a teenager. 13 to 20, I think I had started playing guitar towards the end of being 12. And so my entire teenage years were immersed in writing music, singing, songwriting. I'd been in a couple bands. I joined a band that eventually became kind of like my whole world. So I'd go to school during the day and wear my, black or blue pants and white shirt and whatever it was. And then I'd come home and change into my shorts and put on my wristband and, short sleeves and my Converse shoes and, sing and write and play like pop punk music. And that was my world. My world was music and friends and social life. And it was a good time.
Did you feel like you were living a double life?
Kind of. Yeah, but not a double life like mischievous. A double life like I felt good about it. Yeah, I felt like, this is my life in school. And also, I felt, and I think I was to a degree, I was somewhat popular because of the band and, had good social skills. So I always had friends. Teenage years were great.
That's good. So how did you get into music? How did that all start?
When I was probably around 10, I was with one of my really close friends, my best friend at the time. And it's funny, like we were raised in a home that did not play modern music at all. Like the closest thing to modern music we had was like the Beatles. And so that's going all the way back to like the 60s. And then I was at a friend's house and he was showing me some bands from the early 90s and the mid 90s. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And he put on one song from a band called Weezer. And there was like a small little guitar solo part in one of them, and I could feel it, kind of like a shock, like a lightning bolt went through my whole body, like a knowing of like, this is what I want to do. I
Like
want to do
that
this.
could be me soon, you know.
No, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I felt soon, but like, this is what I have to do. Like, this is the right direction. And I think when I consider moments in my life that were like pivotal, that was one of them. Of like, it moment, and it changed the course and the direction of my childhood and the direction of my life. And I think we all have those at different points and times. And I feel really blessed to have had many of them, and I feel like I live in a constant rapport with God and how Hashem runs the world. But that was like I couldn't ignore it. It was like, that's it. I'm doing this. I went home. I told my parents, I was like, I need a guitar. I want a guitar. I'd been playing classical piano for 7 years up until that point. Like, since I was very young, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old, I was already playing classical piano, and I was like, no more piano. I need a guitar. Like, that's what I'm doing. And self-taught. I tried to have a teacher, didn't work for me. Kind of figured out how to play on my own, and the same thing with writing and singing. Never really thought that I was really all that good, but I loved it and I was passionate, and I think that I could create something. And then that just became my whole world. I started playing on the Sunset Strip when I was 13 years old. We played at the Whiskey A Go Go, which was an incredible story. That's like, the Whiskey is, for those who don't know, it was like one of the like landmark spots in Los Angeles, where it was like a rite of passage. Every major rock band that ever was had gone through there, from the Beatles and Led Zeppelin, and like all the way up to, like, at the time was like Green Day and Linkin Park. All the major bands that I was listening to, they all spent time in this one place.
At this stage, this was your own band, or you were part of a different band?
This was my band. I was always kind of like the singer-songwriter of whatever band I found myself in.
So what was it called? What was your band called?
My band was called In Theory. That first iteration was actually called Global Warning. And
Global Warning.
yeah, I told my friend and other singer-songwriter with me at the time, I said, we should play at the Whiskey. And he was like, well, how are we going to do that? And I was like, well, just let's open up the phone book and let's call them. And he was like, that'll never work. And I was, whatever. Like, and at the time, like, we're going back 20 plus years. So there's something called the Yellow Pages, and it was a phone book that had all the numbers in it from, everywhere in the city. And so we opened it up, and I called the Whiskey, and I said, hi, this is Theo from Global Warning. And they were like, oh, it's so good to hear from you. How you doing? We love you guys. And I was like, I just kind of went along with it. I said, oh, yeah, that's great. Like, we're just trying to figure out if we can play there, in August. And she says, oh, that's great. We have an opening on like August 26th or something like that. And would you guys want to play? And it's at this slot. And I was like, yeah. And like, it all went very smooth. And she said, fantastic. You can come pick up the tickets next week. And the pre-sales at this order and this price. And I got off the phone and I told my friend Yona, I was like, we're playing at the Whiskey in, 2 months. And he was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I guess they thought we were somebody else. And we sold hundreds and hundreds of tickets to this event because, we were excited about it. It was our first event and all these people wanted to come. So we showed up and we played, and we were literally these 13-year-old kids in this, big bar, big club. And afterwards, they came up to us, the people who owned it, and said, look, we recognize that there was a mistake over here. There's another band called Global Warning, and it wasn't you guys. However, you guys were great, and you sold so many tickets, you guys can come back whenever you want.
That's incredible. It's crazy. Wow.
Yeah, and that really opened up the door, because once we were able to kind of have like a revolving door, kind of show up and play at the Whiskey, we were able to play at some of the other clubs in the area, and then we got an agent, and then, kind of built from there. And we did that for years. So 7 years we were playing together.
It's incredible. So how popular was your band at this time, like after the Whiskey?
Well, after the Whiskey, it doesn't change all that much after one show, but over the years, we grew a following in Los Angeles. During that time, social media was just beginning. So before Facebook, there was something called MySpace. I don't know if you're familiar, but like it was kind of like the pre social media age. And we grew like a good size following there. We had like, I don't know, 30, 40,000 followers, hundreds of thousands of listens on our like streaming list over there, which streaming was brand new. There was no streaming platforms. It was an MP3 player on a site, and that was it. And it was tracking you. And if you lost that, you lost everything. But we had a pretty good track record.
I could find your old stuff on Spot. We could find your old stuff on Spotify, or
You can find the old. It was just recently re-put up in the last year or two. It was taken down for a part of the story that happens later, but we recently got it put back up, so you can find it. In theory, the name of the album was "This Is It."
okay,
So
we'll
there's
check it
that
out.
one. You can find it. It's a red album cover, and I don't look like this right now, but I'm sure you can figure out which one's me. And so yeah, so we had amassed like a good sized following in Southern California. We were playing pretty big shows at the time, House of Blues and the Key Club and the Roxy, and these were all really really big places in LA. And we, by the time I was in my senior year, we had gotten popular enough that the head of the school did not want me coming back the second half of senior year, pulled me aside and basically said, you know, you're choosing the band over this, and so we're gonna have to let you go.
Wow.
Basically,
Did he ask you like it was like a sudden thing, or like
I can't say it was completely sudden. In 10th grade, I was asked to stop, and they had said, you know, it was too out of the box for this type of yeshiva high school, and I did it anyway. And I'd gotten all the way through senior year, and I thought we were going to be fine. And that was it. There was like, I don't know, 2 classes left in high school, and then he was like, "Look, enough of the parents have asked us to not have you graduate," and so that was the end of that. But I was.
why did the parents care? Like why the parents it was taken away from their own kids? Like
I think because they didn't want their kids on Sunset Boulevard on Thursday nights and Saturday nights, you know.
because all your friends from school came to your show. What? And after you left the school, they won't come anymore. Like what's the difference?
Yeah, but it's not that they wouldn't come anymore, but it's that the school was sending a message that they don't condone it. I actually have a very good relationship with the Rosh Yeshiva today, and he's a wonderful person. And I don't think he was doing it maliciously. I think that he was just trying to make the best decision for his school. And my parents were really behind me, and the rabbi of our shul was behind me. Like I had a lot of support, even though it meant not being in the school anymore. And then my family decided to move to Israel, and I had to choose whether to go with them or stay behind. So I stayed to pursue this music career, and I stayed for another couple of years. We ended up getting signed to a record label, which is its own story, and things really started to grow. We started doing tours. We started opening up for acts in front of thousands and thousands of people at a time. At that point, it was amazing. It was everything a person who was in a rock band would want. That's what was opening up for us, and a gift, a true gift.
What was the most wild or surreal moment that you encountered in your band?
Oh man, there's probably a good list of those moments. One that comes to mind is I think we were in Chicago, and we were on tour at the time, and we were opening up for a band called the Plain White Tees. They were a Grammy Award-winning band. They had a really popular song at the time called "Hey There, Delilah," and I really liked them. I had listened to a lot of their music, and so it was really exciting to open up for them. And then we were all hanging out together, kind of like in the backstage lot before the show. And I kind of just went for it and said, I'd love to come and sing with you guys on stage, like doing one of your songs. And the guy looked at me, and I think his name was Tom. I have to look it up. It's been so many years. And he was like, "What? Yeah, sure. Why not? Like, what song do you want to come up for?" And it was just so easy. And it was like this lesson of like, don't hold yourself back. Just ask. You want to do something? Like the worst thing you could do is that they could do is say no, right? You don't say no for them. And so I had asked, and he was excited, and I said, "Oh, I know the song. It's Revenge, and I know the words to the bridge." He's like, "Great, I'll call you on." And I remember standing backstage while they were on set, and he called my name, and he called me out to come sing with him. And we had this, like, I don't know, it was like a 30, 45 second experience, but it was singing on stage, kind of like in this call and response back and forth with a band that I looked up to, that I was excited by, in front of thousands and thousands of people. And I can't say it was like feeling like an equal, but it was this feeling of like, oh, we're really here. Like this isn't pretend, right? Like we're really here. We're really out there. We're doing this. And it was like a powerful flashpoint moment in the band's growth.
Mm-hmm. Wow, it's amazing. I just want to go back a minute. Were you upset at the Yeshiva at that time for throwing you out? Did you understand where it's coming from? Were you very angry?
You know, it's funny. I wasn't very angry, but I didn't understand. Today, I think I can understand it better. I think there were other ways that might have been able to be handled between you and I. I mean, I think that if you're going to let a person stay all the way to the last couple months, hard to rationalize letting someone go so close to the end. So I'd probably find a way to keep the kid in one way or another. But yeah, I didn't understand, but I wasn't upset. I was more like, my parents weren't happy about it. You know, a lot of people weren't happy about it. But it was okay with me. It's like, okay, if that's the direction we're going to go in. I wanted to be in the yearbook, and I fought for that, and they allowed me to be in the yearbook. I wanted to walk down the aisle, you know, with everybody as they were graduating. That didn't end up happening, and so that did sting. That was hard because, you know, I felt like I invested 4 years into that place. But I did make a choice to stay and to pursue what I was passionate about and excited about, and so I didn't feel bad about the decision.
How did you look at this time? How do you describe your appearance?
Like I said, I dressed in shorts and short sleeves and, you know, Converse shoes. I had either a slick back or shaved head, or I had a mohawk for a lot of the time, like where I had the sides shaved and I had something coming down the middle. Not like insane. Like, I mean, some of my band members, they looked a lot more intense.
We'll get a good thumbnail picture for when we put out the interview.
Yeah, we'll find. I'll find you something out there. There's some good pictures, but we tried to look put together. But it was early 2000s pop rock, pop punk. Like, that's what we were trying to do.
Was it as fun as it looked, or like behind the scenes? Did you feel complete? Did you feel purpose, or did you feel like did you feel on purpose? Like, what was going on inside?
Number one, it was as fun as it looked. and I don't like it when people try to make it seem like something's not what it is. It was amazing. It was unbelievable. And yet, even though it was amazing and unbelievable, it also was not the full picture of reality. I did see over and over again, I saw that people in the industry later in life struggled. And when we were on tour with some of our favorite bands at the time. And I would see, there was this one group, they were called Yellow Card, and they were a lot of fun. I really liked them. But the singer, Ryan, was walking around with like a pint of vodka everywhere he went. I just saw him walking, like he was just drinking all the time. And there were so many different groups and individuals that I had met, and then other people that I had looked into, that I saw that like the future of this life was what I felt was a very unstable life, right? It wasn't something that I was looking forward to.
Before we get to some of my favorite parts of this episode, I gotta tell you about one of my favorite companies of all time, Twillory. Twillory makes amazing, comfortable, and breathable clothing, and also looks so nice. You can see I'm wearing the amazing Twillory shirt, and for Pesach, you gotta add Twillory clothing to your wardrobe. But hold up a second, I need a jacket. Whoa! Here we go, Twillory ear suit. It's lightweight, breathable. It's a special technology that when you wear it, it doesn't feel like you're wearing a suit. It's perfect for Pesach, especially if you can be in a warm place. Go check out Twillory, get the amazing ear suit today. Go visit their website, twillory.com, or go visit my friends over at one of the amazing stores in Lakewood or the Five Towns. As always, the links are in the show notes. Okay, so you have your Twillory ear suit, you're at the Seder, sitting down with your whole family, and you're like, yes, I got my ear suit, but you're like, hold up, I forgot Dvar Torah. This is where Parsha Knowledge comes in. So every week, Parsha Knowledge sends out weekly powerful information on the Parsha with a powerful Var and a crazy story. And great news, that's something coming out for Pesach. To get in time for Pesach, email info@parshaknowledge.com or WhatsApp 646-397-2320. Right now, check out Twillory, get a nice shirt, get a suit for Pesach, and make sure to sign up for the weekly inspiration.
Somewhere along the way, it was at a record release party, somebody came to me and they asked me how long I'd play music for. And I said, probably till we're successful and then we'll settle down. And he said, when's success? And at the time, I didn't have a good answer for him, so I told him to grab another drink and I'd figure it out or something. But when I started thinking about what success meant, I started looking into like what the future of that life held. And what I found was that most of the people that I looked up to either were never married or were married to multiple people or never had children or had children with multiple people, lived on the road 6 to 10 months out of the year at a minimum, had struggled with or had succumbed to some terrible addiction in any number of spaces, and were dealing with psychological issues. Like, it was a very, very intense lifestyle. And it was almost, and at the very top of it, there was like a good number of them that had either attempted or taken their own life. And so it was this weird reality where I was at the height of growth, but I saw that the direction it went in led to a dark place that I didn't want to risk going into. So the feeling of you might be able to be successful at what you do, but still fail at life hit me really hard. And that's what started kind of the shaking point of like, okay, so maybe this is the wrong direction. Maybe there is another place to go and figure out, well, what's this whole thing about?
Well, so we're gonna hear about your as we can see now, like a lot of people will say like, wait, you were in a rock band, you were so big, like that, like you have a crazy amazing transformation of tshuva. So we're gonna hear about that. But I want to ask you, if you're okay with sharing, do you have any did you personally experiment with drugs and alcohol in a bad way?
Thank God I was protected from drugs, though everyone in my Dalit Amos, my whole world, everybody was doing lots of stuff. Somehow, I don't know, maybe it was the way I was raised, or maybe it's my DNA, or maybe it's my, Shorsh Neshama. I don't know what it is, but somehow I was protected from the world of drugs. I was, by the time I left, I was drinking, but not even all that heavily. You know what I mean? Like, drinking didn't really become a major issue for me. And it felt like some version of protection, because there's no reason why it shouldn't have gotten worse, other than the fact that things were okay. Maybe if, given it more time, that might have spiraled into something else.
I don't want to get that sidetracked, but like, what would you say about drinking is very prevalent these days, and like everywhere you go, like we have a hard time tapping into general simcha. So like, what would you say about that?
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up. My wife and I have been talking about it a lot for the last few months. Specifically, we noticed we did this big family trip over the summer. We were in America, and we noticed the same thing, that like you couldn't go to a simcha or any event or a kiddush or anything. I mean, literally, it's called kiddush, but you couldn't go anywhere, and there wasn't like a pervasive amount of alcohol. Like, it's just like everywhere, and I think it's an issue. Is it a everybody, we have to stop everything right now issue? I don't know if it's gotten to that point, but I think there's an overuse of alcohol. There's a piece by Rav Dessler where he speaks about alcohol. I think it's in the beginning of Chelik Dalet of Michtam Eliyahu, where he talks about how this kind of started amongst the Hasidim, it looks like, in terms of bringing alcohol into a Farbrengen and into the area to help loosen a person up and to help open a person get into a higher state, a deeper state of consciousness. Yeah, like that was really the entry point. And Rav Dessler says it's a beautiful thing when used in the right way, right? Like, if it's used in a way to bring a person up and in, that's wonderful. It's not the only way, it's not the only path, but it is a path. The problem is it's become so normal. Maybe we've gone beyond a little bit at a Farbrengen to open a person up, that it's so prevalent that we are now relying on it, that the communities are relying on it so much that, number one, there's for sure addiction that's out there that's undetected and untreated, that it exists. I'm not saying everybody is, but I know that it exists out there. And I come from a family on both sides of addiction, so I recognize an addict, and it's a very, very hard reality, and it deeply impacts themselves as well as their family.
Could you tell us a little about that and how that impacted you?
Yeah, I've had multiple people in my life. Throughout my life, I've always been surrounded by people who've had this. Some people in my immediate family, some people in my wife's family, Some people more open about it than others, so I'm not going to mention anybody by name here, but there's a superhero in my life. One of them is my brother-in-law, who he is his name is Naftali Kalfa. Naftali is a superhero. He himself was in one of the darkest places a person who struggles with addiction can find themselves in, on like every level. I don't know what wasn't on his board of addiction, and he found his way out of it, and through the 12-step program and through therapy and really through the love and support of his family, his whole family is an extended family. And he lost a lot of his friends and social network as he grew and changed, but he really is the model of what it looks like to come out from the darkest places of I don't even know who I am anymore, to being not just a model citizen, but a model father, a husband, a friend, a champion of goodness and light in this world. And I'll tell you, he represents what so many people who struggle with addiction become, which is a person who struggles with addiction has so much light in them, but it is trapped somewhere. But if you can unleash it, they become such great lights in the world. So any person who is struggling or knows someone who's struggling, recognize that that person, whether that's you or somebody else, has so much hidden light and potential in you. When channeled the right way, you are the supernovas of these realities, and it can be found, and it can be unleashed.
That's beautiful. Could you share with us the story of your fellow band member who got addicted to meth?
Yeah, so that was very hard. And that was probably my first real experience with seeing the dark side of the entertainment industry as well as the dark side of drugs. We had a concert at one of these venues, and we got there, and our drummer didn't show up. And it was really challenging because you can't play without a drummer if you're a rock band. And so we played an acoustic set, and we said, okay, I guess, maybe he got lost, or, he wasn't answering his phone. And then we had a band practice 2 days later, and again, he didn't show up. And then we had one other concert where we're like, man, he's for sure going to show up to this one. People had spoken to him earlier. He had some sort of excuse for the other one, and then he didn't show up again. So now, within a week, he had missed 3 really important key events, and we found out that he had gone really far down the road of a meth addiction, and it was really bad. Like, it had impacted his capacity to really be a person in the world. And so essentially we said, look, you have to get help, and we helped him. We enrolled him in a treatment program, and he was super open about it and excited. He's like, I'm going to get clean. This is going to be fine. It'll be great. We canceled our shows for the month.
That's very special also, right?
Yeah, it was hard, but it was what it was. I don't remember how many shows we had that month, but we kind of took a step back. We used that month to look around for a potential replacement drummer. In the meantime, I think we had one band practice where we had a replacement drummer that time, and then he got out, and we were ready to get back in the seat of things. And this is right after we got signed to a label, so it didn't look good either. And he relapsed like very quickly, like within a week or two. He had relapsed. He went back in, and when he went back in for the second time, the label and my manager and our PR people, everybody kind of sat us down and said, look, if you hold on to this person, we know he's your friend. We know you've been playing with him for close to 7 years. We know the whole history, but it's going to jeopardize your capacities to succeed at this if you really want to go for it. And that's when I had to take a deep breath and try to figure things out. And I took a trip. It was like my first real trip to Israel, to go visit my family who had moved like a year and a half before. And on that trip, a lot of things happened, but one of the things that became clear to me was that, like, okay, like, we're gonna have an indefinite hiatus from him and take a break and come back and tell him that he needs to get his life together. And if he gets his life together, he'll always have a spot with us. He did not take that well, and that was like probably top 5 in terms of like big independent monumental moments. Like, it was really hard to essentially fire one of my closest friends and somebody who I'd spent years and years with, and we had developed something really powerful together. And yeah, it was really, really hard. But we saw firsthand, the challenge of drugs. I had a friend during that same time period who I had two friends during that time period who OD'd, and drugs are a scary thing. By the way, he lived, and he is. My understanding is that he since had gotten clean, got his life together. I believe he's married now. I don't know that he'll ever hear this, but if he hears this, I'll always have love for him.
Were the members of your band Jewish, or they were all from your yeshiva? Like, what was that like?
They weren't all from the yeshiva, but they were all Jewish. We had like a very mix of individuals in the band, so it was like one of them was the son of a rabbi, one of them was the son of a Baal Tshuva who ended up going off, another one was the son of a Baal Tshuva who then later became from, and one of them was the son of non-religious parents who he himself never became religious. So you kind of had like the full gamut mixture. Some of them were from the yeshiva, some of them we found in the neighborhood. Like it was kind of a mix, but all good guys. Like it was just a good group of guys trying to have fun and play music.
Nice. So at this point, you would say that you were living the dream.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us, how did this all change? You referenced before the story. By the way, were the members of your band Jewish, or they were all from your yeshiva? Like, what was that like?
They weren't all from the yeshiva, but they were all Jewish. We had like a very mix of individuals in the band, so it was like one of them was the son of a rabbi, one of them was the son of a Baal Tshuva who ended up going off, another one was the son of a Baal Tshuva who then later became from, and one of them was the son of non-religious parents who he himself never became religious. So you kind of had like the full gamut mixture. Some of them were from the yeshiva, some of them we found in the neighborhood. Like it was kind of a mix, but all good guys. Like it was just a good group of guys trying to have fun and play music.
Say So at this point, you would say that you were living the dream.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us, how did this all change? You referenced before the story. Can you just share, let's say the story of the album release party?
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, at the party, somebody had asked me about becoming successful, which basically started my mind. It put me in motion of realizing that success was more than just, how famous you got or how many #1 singles you sold or, how many albums you put out. When you hear the question, what is success or when is success, which is what he had asked me at the time, I think I was just open. I was open enough at the time to hear that, probably because of this trip to Israel. Really, kind of the longer version of the trip was I came to Israel, just to backtrack. I came to Israel to think about my drummer, but while I was there, we got this phone call that we were about to get picked up by this big agency. And at the time, if you recall, there was this is at the height of when Matisyahu was really, really famous at the time. One Day, I think had just come out or was just about to come out. He was really, really big. And so I knew that this was going to be a major step for me in my vision going forward. And I made a decision that I was going to be more makpid and specific about putting tefillin on every day, no matter what time I woke up. And again, remember, my nights, we didn't finish playing at clubs and then signing autographs and selling stuff until 2-3 o'clock in the morning. So we were go to bed late, wake up late kind of group. And and if we'd finished at 3, and then we stayed up for another 4 hours, very often we were up till sunrise. But it was didn't matter what we were doing. I was going to put on tefillin that day, and then putting on tefillin led to, okay, I'm going to say the Shema with this, and then putting on tefillin and saying the Shema was well, I keep reading about tzitzis, I should probably get a pair of tzitzis. So I went out to the store and bought a pair of tzitzis. So then I was putting on tefillin and saying the Shema and wearing the tzitzis, and I was I should probably know what I'm saying. And somebody left a book at my apartment at the time, which was Rav Schwab on prayer, which was a lot of hashgacha. And so I just started reading his perush on what the Shema meant, and it was so inspiring that I started reading on, and I read his understanding of the Shmona Esrei, and I was like, wow, I should really be saying Shmona Esrei. So I like over time that kind of built like one day after the other, mitzvah goreres mitzvah. I was like, okay, tefillin, and then tzitzis, and then Shema, and then Shmona Esrei, and then someone was like, I should probably go daven in a shul. So then I started davening, like there was a Chabad near where I lived, so I started going to this Chabad, and then like 3 weeks later or 4 weeks later after this process had started, I was like, I should probably find a class, like someone's got to teach this stuff. And I walked up to this, it was a Shabbos afternoon. I walked up to somebody and said, does anybody here give any classes? And this person said, oh, that rabbi over there gives a class at 4:00. You'll love it. It's called Daf Yomi. We're starting this thing. It's called Yevamos. You'll really like it. And I was like, okay, great. I don't know what it is, but let's do it. And I showed up and we had this hour class. And because I was so inspired at the time, I was like, this is great. When's the next day? And I said, same time tomorrow. And he said, no, it's not at 4 tomorrow. Tomorrow's Sunday. It's at 8 in the morning. And like 8 in the morning, I was like, that's insane to me. But I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And I got up early and I went to this 8:00 class. And I was like, okay, great. Same time tomorrow. He's like, no, today's Sunday. He's like, tomorrow the shiur's at 6. And I was like, I haven't seen 6 a.m. in like 5 years. and I was like, okay. And I pushed myself and I went to the shiur and I was really inspired. And I did that every day for 3 weeks. And this was leading up till Shavuos. And 3 weeks into this class series, the rabbi looks at me and says, me and the whole class, he says, I'm moving. And I'm going to discontinue this whole thing. I was like, I just found you. You can't move. Like, what do you mean? I didn't know this, but turns out he just moved like 2 miles up like the road and like started his own shul. But like I never saw him again. And there was this, he said, I'm going to give one last shiur. It's on Shavuos night. It starts at midnight, goes till 5 a.m. So I was like, okay. And I went to this thing, and it was the first time he taught Chassidus. Because up until now, it was Gemara. And I was completely thrown. It was mind-blowing. I'd never heard anything like that in my life. I'd always been a spiritual person. I was always living with Hashem, always living with guidance and direction, but never clarity from a perspective of Torah, that there was something deeply magical, mystical, and ultimately fundamentally true about Torah, until the energy of this man and the Torah that he was sharing from a more Kabbalistic, Hasidic approach, it touched me in a way that I'd never been really, not that I hadn't been seen, but I never saw in Torah before. And so that time was at the same time when I was going through this what is success experience. Those were happening in the same couple months, like they were all together. So I was thinking about what the definition of success is and what life is about, while I'm being hit with this amazingly powerful growth in my connection to Torah and to tefillin and to tzitzis and what is life about. And everything was so big that I had this overwhelming effect as I was walking home from shul on Shavuos, and I basically broke down in an alley and just started crying with clarity, because it felt like I had hit like a deep, deep place inside of me, this knowing of like, oh my gosh, I have to go, like I have to leave. And it was knowing like, and that knowing that this was over, that things were over the way that they were, was a powerful and not yet freeing experience, because I was still in it and I didn't know what was going to happen. And it took another handful of months not handful, but I think another 3 months from there until when I finally did make the decision to leave, and do a whole new search in my reality, which led me to Yerushalayim and to Yeshiva.
It's incredible. So this is like a slippery slope for the good.
Yeah, it was great.
That's beautiful. Guys, Pesach is coming up. Pesach is coming. You know what will elevate your Pesach so much? Knowing about Pesach, knowing Hilchos Pesach. That's where Ohr Olam Mishabura comes in. I have the wonderful, amazing, incredible Ohr Olam Mishabura. Ohr Olam Mishabura is incredible Hebrew English Mishabura. I don't know if you could see it, but one side is Hebrew, the other side is English. Incredible notes, pictures, illustrations, incredible commentary. And guess what? You could get the whole Mishabura on Hilchos Pesach. Perfect for learning before Pesach, on Pesach. Go to your local bookstore, click the link in the show notes, and check out the incredible Ohr Olam Mishabura and elevate and enhance your Pesach and gain so much knowledge in halacha. get the Ohr Olam Shabur today. When you were in high school, were you were putting on tefillin and then like you stopped during the rock band, or?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Meaning, I was putting on tefillin in high school because it was just something you did when you went to school, and like in the morning they had davening, so you put on tefillin and you daven. Like I don't know how much I actually davened or prayed at all. Actually, in high school, it wasn't a big part of my life. I moved my lips a bunch.
Lip service. A lot of us do that though. Like we're like religious robots. Like.
Yeah, no, it. I felt no meaning and no connection in any of it. Didn't feel real. But that's what you did. I'm saying like you grow up in a Jewish Orthodox from environment. There's certain social standards that you keep, but there's a reason why in the Shemona Esrei it opens up with Elokeinu v'Elokei Avosenu, our God and the God of our fathers. Most people just have the God of their fathers. You have to find your God, right? It's part of it. That's what the Baal Shem Tov says, right?
So you saying so you have how do you make Hashem your God? How do you make him yours?
So this is how do you find God, right? The Kutzker says, where is God? You have to, you have to make space for him. You have to let him in. But really, the first person to ask that question is Avram. Avram dedicates his whole life to finding God, right? To finding his God. And when he finally finds him, what does God say to him? Lech lecha. Go to yourself.
Lech lecha. Go within yourself.
That's right. You can't really start to find God until you really start to know what it means to be alive, to really know who you are. And it starts with self-awareness. It really does begin with saying, well, wait, what am I and who am I? And what is this thing that I'm in? I'm in this body and I've got all these thoughts and these emotions and I'm telling all these stories in my head. And what's real? Because if you start asking the question, what's real? Who am I and what's real? Then what you're going to be led to is the only thing that's really real is God, right? God is a placeholder. It's just a word pointing to the essence of everything, right? It's behind and within all that is. And we don't end up seeing or relating to that God when we're still out chasing for something we think is going to make us happy. Another way to answer your question is to say it like this, Aryeh. We are all looking for God. Everyone is looking for God because God is, we have different versions of it. People call it success. People call it happiness. People call it love. People call it joy. People call it peace. People call it achievement. Call it whatever you want. That is the God you're looking for. You think you're going to find the ultimate pleasure and joy in that thing, but really you're running outside to find something that was always on the inside. And so we need to really flip the script. And instead of asking, well, maybe instead of asking what will make me happy or what will bring me to God, I can start asking, why don't I feel that already, right? Is it really something out there or is it something in here? And it's a life's work. But these things happen in flashes. You do the work from below. And then you're given these gifts, these movements. And that's why we use words like faith and trust and surrender. These are all big words. But really what it means is get outside of the part of your mind that thinks that life's not okay now. Life is okay now. You don't need to be anywhere else to get really present and live with yourself. So the more you get to know yourself, the more you get to know what's right in front of you authentically.
How do we be authentic with ourselves? How do we get into ourselves?
So I think for every person, the conversation is going to be different. But if we get really simple about it, for some people, the answer is sit and get quiet and just listen to what's going on in your head. Give yourself. Most people haven't sat an hour by themselves. Think about that. When's the last time, if I asked you right now, when's the last time you sat for an hour without reading anything or without holding a phone?
I don't know,
Exactly. So the beginning is, if I say to everyone who's listening, if I say take an hour, we're going to laugh because no one's going to take an hour, right? So start with something that you think is doable. Like put away the phone, put away the books, put away all the distractions, and go sit with yourself for 15 minutes, 20 minutes. find quiet. It starts in quiet. The neshama speaks in a low voice, kol demamadaka. It's a very faint and subtle voice. And so first and foremost, we have to find some quiet. We have to get rid of the noise. If that's too difficult, for many people, they find that their path is actually in writing. Go get a pen or a pencil and grab a notebook or a journal and just write about what's going on inside of you. And then take a look at what's inside of you. Like, let yourself have expression. Let the inner part of yourself have expression and get to see. So that would be a first step, is either finding quiet or finding a place to express. If you're lucky enough to have someone in your life, mother, father, sister, brother, wife, husband, friend, coach, rabbi, therapist, if you have someone in your life that you can talk to, who will, with love and grace, reflect back to you what you need to hear about yourself, then those conversations are also helpful. So you've got like three areas that are a good place to start. But if you can get to quiet, that's where it is.
I want to tell you about my friends over at Colel Chabad. Do you know how many people are starving in Israel? There's over 47,000 families that Colel Chabad is impacting on a day-to-day basis, providing them with food, shelter, and education, and so much more. Colel Chabad is there for them. They need our support. Colel Chabad is a new modern-day innovation. You know what they have? They have the Push app. You heard about it before, probably Jewish and Joyful. Did you get it yet? Go visit the link, pushapp.cc/joyful. That's pushkapp.cc/joyful. And there you could download the Colel Chabad Push app. In this app, you give any amount. You give $1, $5, $10, $15, $20, as much as you want. Once you reach the goal, you empty your push gun. It goes on your credit card, and you just donate to help the poor people in Israel. As always, all the links are in the show notes. And enjoy the rest of this episode. When and how did you decide to leave the band?
So I think it became most clear to me so after that Shavuos, we went on this tour. And during the tour, there were a lot of really big bands, and some of them had their kids with them. And I think it was really weird. Everybody was out kind of like doing their thing, and I was like hiding in the tour van, putting on tefillin and like reading my Rav Schwab and like doing my thing while everyone's out there. And it was a funny experience. I have like very like clear, vivid pictures of me hiding in the back, putting on my tefillin. And what I found was, that's where like it really hit me when I saw the kids. I saw these kids out there, and it didn't look right. Something was wrong. They were like 10 and 11 and 12, and they were like smoking cigarettes, and they surrounded by what I wouldn't want my kids to be surrounded by. And so it hit me really strong, and that's when I really knew, like, okay, like this is gonna have to change. And when I got back, I remember my best friend and tour manager at the time looked at me, and he knew also. Though he didn't say anything, he knew. And then he said to me, "Tell me that wasn't our last time." And it hit me so strong. And I lied to him. I told him, I was like, "No, what are you talking about?" And I remember sitting there being like, "Man, that's not true. Like that I think that was our last time." And 2 weeks later, I sat down with him and I told him. I said, "You were right. And I'm leaving." During those 2 weeks, I got on the phone. I called the one rabbi that I knew, because this other rabbi moved. This one rabbi that I knew, Rabbi, I think his name's Stephen Berg, from NCSY. No, Berger. That's his name, Stephen Berger. I knew Steve Berg and a Stephen Berger. Yeah. I know Steve Berg also, by the way, who was wonderful, and he was also impactful to me in my youth, and was very helpful. Berger was, I think he was a rabbi in Palo Alto, and eventually he became the head of an NCSY chapter in Vancouver, and eventually became, I think, one of the, I actually haven't spoken to him in years, but he was the one person that I was still in touch with at the time, and he said I should go to this place called Or Sameach, and I'd never heard of it, but he was like, "You got to go to this place." And I said, "Okay," and I started looking into it, and I couldn't get through to the person he said to be in touch with. And he called me back like 3 or 4 days later, and he was like, "No, I changed my mind. Like, you need to go to this person named Gershenfeld. There's a rabbi, his name's Gershenfeld, you have to go. It's the Harvard of yeshivas." And I was like, "Look, I don't think I can get into Harvard. Who says I can get into the Harvard of yeshivas?" He was like, "Don't worry, I have a connection. I'll get you in." I ended up having a conversation with Rabbi Gershenfeld, who subsequently became my Rebbe, who I sat by him every week for, 12 years. And and then a few days after that, I spoke to Rabbi Jacobs, who's the head of Machon Yaakov, and we made a decision that that's where I'd go to yeshiva. I went in, I told my friend Daniel, who was it was a very hard conversation. He was not thrilled, and I asked him not to tell anybody. I wanted to tell the band members myself. And I guess I took one too many days in getting to them, and he couldn't hold it anymore, so he told all of them. And we had a blow-up meeting at some restaurant in LA where they all got to yell at me and scream at me and curse me out and tell me how much they were upset at me for doing this and if I was real about it. And I told them that I was. And we still had a couple more shows we had to play together. And because it was so painful, we didn't speak. It was like there was no more talking, but we still had to show up and play as if we were friends. And I'll never forget the last concert. We all met at Daniil's house, at my tour manager's house, and we got in the van together. And it was silence. It was this like deadened, pin drop silence as we drove to this venue to play. And it was heavy and intense. And then we got onto the stage. And it was magic. I don't know. I think everybody knew it was our last time. It was our last show. And for 40 minutes, or however long we played for, we played our hearts out. Everybody played as if it was their first, their middle, and last show all together. We had fun. It looked like we were all best friends again. Everybody gave it their all. And it was a great show. Not every show goes like that. And it was great. And I don't know how many people were in the audience. It was packed. It was great. And then we walked off, and 3 out of 4 of them just disappeared. They didn't even say bye. It was like there was nothing. They just like I thought like afterwards we'd all get a hug, and it was like no. It was like goodbye. And I walked up to my tour manager, who was my best friend, and said, we'll make it through this. And I gave him a hug, and he just whispered in my ear, "No, we won't." And it was really heavy. I'm an optimist, an endless optimist, so I was sure that we would. And I got into this taxi and headed out on my way to the airport, and I laughed and cried my way.
Wow. So what happened with the band after this, by the way?
My understanding is they tried to continue for a handful of months. The record label tried to continue for a while. To their credit, they didn't sue me. They could have. I think they got sued in the end. There was a 6-figure lawsuit, and they got sued because I left, and that meant that their band, which had just put out an album, basically defaulted on their commitment to perform in order to help make sure the sales went up. And so I was gone, so the sales dropped. It was bad. And to the credit of the label, Vincent Pettetti, who was the founder and CEO, who I have a good relationship with today. It took 20 years before we were able to really reconnect. They didn't drag me back. And
you're saying you did burn bridges though when you left?
Yes, those bridges never got repaired.
Did you ever try getting in contact with any of your former friends or band members?
Yes, I did. And it's probably too much for the scope of our conversation here, but I was on a podcast last year, this podcast with Nachi Gordon, actually with Nachi yesterday. He's in Israel right now. So anyway, so he asked me at the time about getting in touch with them. And actually, not long after that podcast, I was in touch with one of the band members, which was really nice. And we had about an hour conversation. That was the first conversation we had in 17 years. So that was really nice. But the other 2 band members, really the other 3 band members and my tour manager, like those relationships were infinitely damaged. I would love to connect with them one day. We'll see if that ever happens.
Maybe after this one. Did you feel very sad and depressed after the shift of leaving the band? Not at all. Like you felt like
No.
you felt like you were running towards something, not away from something.
That's right. Yeah, I never felt that I made a mistake. And that which is a blessing. That doesn't have to be the case. You could leave something and you could easily feel like you made a mistake. I never had that feeling.
But you're still laughing and crying, meaning that you were very.
Cuz you ended something. Yeah? Like you're crying about the end of 7 years of building something, the end of relationships that were going to not be repaired, the end of living 20 years in Los Angeles. It was a lot of endings, so it was intense emotions, so there was a lot of tears. And then there was this laughing, like an insatiable joy and laughter from this freedom. Like everything was lifted, like this major lift of like I made the right decision. And for years people asked me what gave you the strength, to make such a decision, to leave so many things behind. And I would say, I don't know. It just felt like, it felt like Yetzias Mitzrayim. Someone picked me up and pulled me out. I don't know, picked me up and pulled me out. And only recently did I realize that that was actually negating the one thing that I did do, which was, which was trust. Really, really trust the guidance within, trust the guidance in my life, trust Hashem, trust the process. And that was the greatest gift. Because if you can really listen, and trust as you're being guided to wherever you're going, that's how you're going to get to the destiny in your life.
Wow, that's beautiful. So I want to ask you, like, a little while back, I had Nissim Black on the show, and Nissim has a crazy story, and other people changed their lives around. And Nissim said that when he was converting, when he became Jewish, he decided to throw out everything. He got rid of all his raps and everything, because he said it may take me away from Hashem. But once he got into more Yiddishkeit, he realized that the opposite, it was bringing him closer in a way to Hashem. So I want to know, how does that relate to you?
Yeah, no, I never really had that feeling of let me throw it all away. I actually did continue writing. A year later, I actually wrote a 5 or 6 song EP, which is a small album, which I released under the title Facing East. You can look that up on Spotify.
I have to check all these out.
Yeah. And so I did continue writing, and I took Ohr Olam and Havdalah and the Chadodi, and I made a bunch of pop punk versions of those. Yeah. I don't play guitar as much. That's the truth. Guitar, here's the thing. I picked up guitar because I wanted to sing and write. So it was a mode for me in order to write. The truth is, recently, like in the last year or two, like I still do a lot of writing. Like music is a part of me, and so like I'll be putting the kids to bed, or I'm walking around the house, and a tune will come to me, or words will come to me, and I'll sit and write. And the gift of living in the 21st century and right now is that in the past, if I wanted to record something, so it would mean, hiring a lot of people. It was very expensive, taking a lot of time, going into a studio and recording. And today what that looks like is I can sing or play my guitar and sing and do a short recording, throw it into one of these AI apps, and I can have a full version of that song in 30 seconds of everything that was going on in my brain 30 seconds before. And so I make music all the time now. You keep an ear out. I'm going to be releasing them soon.
Are you actually? Yeah.
I hope so, yeah. I have a plan for it.
That's cool. Like rock and roll type or more?
Everything. Nigunim, rock, whatever. Whatever Hashem puts in me. I'm a rabbi, I'm a writer, I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm a teacher. For many years, I was a Rebbe in Machon Yaakov, and I taught at Machon Shlomo. I was a Rebbe for the organization Ohr. I was a Rebbe and spoke in different seminaries in Yerushalayim, Neve, and Midrash Tehillah, and others. I teach in different seminaries and yeshivas here in Israel, when they call me. But right now, my work is primarily trying to take all of the life experience that I've had alongside about a decade and a half of in-depth Torah learning, and translate that into a language that lands for people, that can help them grow and develop, first at the fundamental level, emotionally, psychologically, as a bridge to opening themselves up to spiritual awakening, spiritual connection, what we call dveikus, and the developing of das. I see myself as being an extension on a mission of bringing God consciousness to the world. I think that's what we're doing. I'm just kind of doing it openly and explicitly, and trying to use my life and what I've learned as a catalyst to help make the lives of other people better.
So what happened so after you left the band, the very hard time, you went to Israel right away?
Yeah, I went straight to Israel, and then 18 plus years now. That's how long I've been here.
Wow. Do you ever miss like the stage, the adrenaline, the stage fame, like the partying? Do you ever miss that now?
I'm kind of tired as far as the partying goes, but I don't miss the. It's funny. It's funny to frame it like that because I am on stage now. Like it's like like on some level I'm kind of back. I find myself like if I were to write this, the first 3 chapters of this book so far, we'll see what chapter 4 looks like. But if chapter 1 was the band and chapter 2 was the learning of Torah, chapter 3 has been bridging those 2 worlds together, which is like, so now instead of writing music albums, I'm writing books, and instead of going on stage and singing, I'm going on stage and teaching, and instead of giving people adrenaline from loud music, I'm hopefully eliciting endorphins and raising their serotonin in meditation and deeper ideas and bringing them to higher consciousness. So it's kind of the same idea, slightly different packaging. So I still find myself on stage. Yes, every now and then I'm like, man, it would be great to get up there and like sing with somebody, and I have a lot of friends in that space still today, who are wonderful and who are in the music industry, both in the frum world and in the secular world, and not to, God forbid, it's not envy, but it's like, man, that is really cool. I really enjoy that, and so I'm really happy that you get to do that. But I'm happy that that's not my life. I am happy that I'm not touring 10 months a year, and I have God had found me another stage to be on.
It's beautiful. Hashem gave you another stage to be on. You gave that up, but you have this now.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about your amazing TED Talk you did? Just talk a little about that.
The TED Talk it's called The 2 Conditions to Unconditional Happiness. And it's really, the TED Talk in one sentence is, if you realize that your nature is good and that the world you find yourself in is good and supportive, you will be unconditionally happy in your life.
Happiness depends on your nature? What does that mean?
Happiness depends on, well, let's say like this. People get very caught up by words. So if I say happiness or joy, I mean the good feeling of being is not bound by anything. It's just covered up by some distracted idea that you're either not good enough or that life's not good enough.
So you're saying that, like, I once heard from one of the Rabbi Ben Shushans, he said happiness is not attainable, it's discoverable because it's already in you. Is that what it is? Yeah.
That's what it is. That's what the Shemi Shmuel says. And it's basically, I recently heard somebody say that happiness is your current situation minus your expectations, right? So it's something very similar to that, meaning joy is your natural state. It really is who you are. If you were to remove all the barriers to being in touch with that inner space, so you would just be full of light because the neshama is light, right? That's all it is. All it is overflow and joy and love and peace and dveikus. There's a connection to God, and that's not just an idea. It's a lived experience, right? And so when I say to know that you're good and to know that life is good, is really just to remember what has always been true. Like you're enough. Like you've always been enough. You do not have to prove anything to anyone. You're great, and life is great and supportive, and is always going to lead you in the direction of your highest calling. That's always true. To the degree that you know those 2 things, you will feel good on the inside. So we call that happiness or joy. And you can measure that. Like it's something you can measure. Like, do I feel at peace? Do I feel joy? And if not, what in my mind still believes something should be different? Do I believe I should be different? Or do I believe my circumstance should be different? And recognize that if you were to change that thought, or even remove that thought, you would fall back to your nature.
Wow. Like, I want to share with you 2 points. Rav Pam, I'm sure you're familiar. Rav Pam is famed for saying the city of happiness is in the state of mind.
Nice.
And also, I think it's Baal Shem Tov who says sameach, which is like the Hebrew word for happiness. You break it apart to sim mayach. Sim means like your thoughts, right? Mayach is where your thoughts are in your brain. because depending on your thoughts and your perspective, that could lead you to more joy and more happiness.
Absolutely. Yeah, the Zohar says machshava is the same osios besimcha.
It's beautiful. Can you take us further in your journey after Israel? Like, how did you end up to where you are now?
So I further into my journey. So the long and the short of it was, I had been blessed to. I spent 2 years learning in a yeshiva called Machon Yaakov. I spent another 2 years learning by someone named Rav Chaim Ilson in Meisharim. And then I spent the next 4 or 5 years by Rabbi Moshe Aryeh in the Mir.
Oh wow, biggest share in the world, right? Biggest
share in the world.
Maybe Rabbi Stefanski is bigger, but that's online. So
The biggest in-person single shir probably since Rebbe Akiva.
wow, really? Is it true? Like they don't like I forgot. Like I spoke to some guys that were there, but like you actually don't have seats there. Like I heard at certain points you had to like stand outside. But I heard that I heard that you had a very special seat though.
Yeah, I had a great seat. I sat right in front of him. My Rebbe at the time told me that it must be in the schus of my wife because he didn't know how I got such a seat. I literally sat right in front of him for 4 years.
It was just open. How did that come about?
Probably just ignorance. I walked in. I didn't realize that that might have been somebody else's seat. I just walked in, sat down, and turns out I think the person who was sitting there before left that zman, so that seat was open. So crazy hashgacha. I sat there for 4 years. I spent a lot of time with Rabbi Moshe and before shir and after shir, and I actually spoke. I asked him this question that you asked me before. I asked him if I had an obligation to continue playing music, and that was already like 4 or 5 years into my journey. But I asked him if I had to go back to it, and he looked at me and he said, "Well, you have to ask 3 questions." And I said, "Okay, what are the 3 questions?" He says, "Number 1, you have to ask if you're good at learning." He's like, "In Baruch Hashem, we don't have that question." He's like, "You're good at learning."
It's a harder share. No, like how do you get to that stage? Like it took a lot of like learning. I'm sure, right?
Yeah, we're learning for a long time, and so he said, "Look, thank God you're good at learning." He said, "But the second question is, do you love it? Do you love your learning? Do you like what you do?" And I was like, I love Torah. I love learning." So he said, "Okay, so the third question is, do you need it for parnasa? Do you need it to make money?" And I said, "No, like I'm good." He's like, "So you're telling me that you're good at Torah, you love Torah, and you don't need the other thing for money?" He said, "Al tafsik lashir shiras Torah. Don't stop singing the song of Torah." Meaning, you don't have an obligation. He didn't say that I shouldn't or that I couldn't. He was just saying that like, if you're happy with where you are, like go deeper in what you're doing. Like you're like you love Torah and you're growing in Torah and you're good at it and you don't need to stop for any other reason. So just keep going deeper into it. And then he went on a whole rant about how much hana the malachim get from it and shemayim, and he like really tried to stress the point. But he very very impactful person in my life. And then after those years, then I went into the world of learning for smicha. I spent years learning. It was probably another 4 years in different halacha kolos. Got smicha from a few different places. Zalman Nechami Goldberg, Rabbi Asher Weiss. Studied for the Rabbanut in Israel. During that time, it was right around then, actually, right as I was kind of like moving into the more halachic space, that I really started going deeper into the more, we would call it the world of Chassidus, the world of Kabbalah, the world of psycho-spirituality. And I went through a really hard time. Well, psycho as in psychology, spirituality as in transcending spirituality, meaning there's pure psychology is we're just focusing on the mind and cognition, and pure spirituality can be like all the way up there in Shemaim, and psycho-spirituality is kind of like the bridge between, where there's a recognition that your connection to the top starts in how you perceive things from the bottom. So, which is where I think most of Hasidus exists, in that space. That's what it's doing. It's trying to help you tap into that world by changing the way you think and perceive in reality. As well as, I think that's what the Balei Musar were trying to do also, deeply affected by the altar of Slobodka in the Or Hatzafun, and that entire line of thinking. Rav Dessler, Rav Volby, these were people who were extremely impactful to me at the time. But I went through a really challenging time for a couple years. I went through like a kind of a dark period where I had to like really re-find myself again, where I didn't feel connected in the same way as I did when I was in the band, and yet I was learning more Torah. So like I kind of like felt like I lost myself along the way, and it took feeling disconnected to go deeper into what Torah had to offer and what was really within all of life. And there was just a blessing. It was a really challenging time.
Where did it come from? Like, what were you like? Where did your dark period come from?
A lot. I think if we had more time, which I know we only have a few minutes left over here, we can go deeper into. Maybe at a future podcast we can go all the way in. But my I would say the source of the darkness was I found myself in the same trap that I was in before, which was the trap was I was trying to find success in the world with my music, and now I was trying to find success in the world through Torah. And I was climbing a new ladder, but it was really the same ladder, just it was a holier version of the same thing. And it took going inside and figuring out what is really holding me back from just living as an expression of, instead of something trying to achieve towards, instead of trying to get somewhere, what's already there on the inside that wants to come out, which took years of deep introspection, therapy, a lot of journaling, lots of conversations, learning really, really deep and profound ideas in Torah, as well as in the general field of psychology, really trying to understand what's going on the inside of our humanity, and bridge it. Like, it felt like one thing wasn't enough. I needed to see more and live more and be more to express. And then I had some breakthroughs, and then I had, again, we're streamlining here, but there was a point where I had this great clarity, because I did try to go make peace with my band members, and I like years later, and it wasn't accepted. It really wasn't. It didn't land, and it opened up something inside of me, like a fearlessness, an okayness, a self forgiveness, and in that space became clear that, oh, I just need to be me fully, like more fully than I was before, and I had a clarity around the desire to take all of this Torah and all of this experience and to start writing and teaching in a way that can help other people who are going through similar things, because we're all basically going through the same things in this world, just slightly different versions of the same things, right? So, we have the big four areas of our life that we struggle with, which is our relationships, our finances, our health, and our ambitions or career, right? Those are the four major areas of life. Everybody has those four. We're all trying to make the best version of those four. And when we struggle in one of them, we're all struggling for the same reason, because we have a picture of how it's supposed to be and it's not. So that's like, psychologically, we're all kind of dealing the same way. But the answer isn't a psychological answer alone. It's a spiritual answer, because it's by connecting deeper within the self and connecting up to a higher source that opens up all the doorways to realize that you're never in the wrong place. You're always at the right time. Things are working out. And so you can channel all of that life experience and all of the fundamentals of what Torah is in such a way to help people live a more deeply connected life, a spiritual life, and a life that leads towards the Geula, which is what we're all doing.
Wow, amazing. So I want to ask you, during this dark period of yours, did you ever doubt your whole path?
No. I think I doubted. I don't know if doubt was really part of it as much.
It was like real depression, like real sadness.
Yeah, it was like real deep feelings of failure and guilt and shame, like not good enough. Like really feelings of like not good enough. And I think the feeling of shame of feeling not good enough, even if you're doing great, and I was doing great, seen from the outside, I was still this great success of a person, and I had this rock band, and I left this rock band, and now I'm in Torah, and now I'm by Rabbi Moshe, and now I have this book, and now, like, I still had a lot of things going for me. I had put out a book earlier called Sukkot Inspired, so I had written this book, and I still had done a lot, and yet I was feeling empty. Not empty is too strong, but I wasn't feeling whole. I'll tell you that. And that shame and that guilt of not being good enough was eating at me for years. And that comes when you're not authentic, when you're not in alignment with yourself. And so that's where the work was.
I have so much to ask, but like we have to end soon because the time is getting late. But I also want to ask you, at this time in life, do you feel much more fulfilled and happier than you did at that time? Like, how do you contrast the two?
Yeah, first of all, let me say every time in life is an amazing moment because whatever you're going through is exactly what you're supposed to be going through right then. But as far as like wholeness and feelings of satisfaction in this world, I feel not just more satisfied and more whole and more joyous. I feel it at a different level. There's like an underlying consistency and peace that comes with knowing that I've weathered certain storms. And so I know that like, oh, I can make it through this. So even though I've been through that before, like I'm going to be okay. And then there's another element, which is you learn tools. And there's a peace of mind that comes in learning the tools along the way. So I feel very grateful, overly blessed, and hopefully we can share some of that with the people around us.
That's beautiful. What's the best advice you ever received?
Wish I had an easy answer for you there.
Was it like maybe like I just thought like your story by the album drop? That was like advice in a way, no?
Nah, I wouldn't look at that as advice. That was like a prompt from Shemaim. Yeah, that was like a prompt.
You had a lot of divine providence in your life.
I did. I think one of the things that come to mind when you ask the question, and I have many things, thank God I've been blessed with lots of good advice and I seek it, so I find it, and that's a gift. But I once asked my Rebbe if he regretted anything. And he said, if I regret anything, it's that I didn't fail enough. And I asked him what he meant, and he said that there were a few times in his life that he held himself back from being more risky. He took the safe side. And just hearing that, it was less of advice and more of like confirmation behind don't let yourself get held back because you're afraid of doing something great. And it's okay. It's going to work out however it's going to work out. And sometimes it means that you're going to be successful at it, and sometimes it's going to fail, but you've never failed, right? You've only learned something. So I think about that a lot. I think about the power of knowing that no matter what happens, it is an extension of God in the world, and it is good. And probably, if I'm being really honest, the best advice didn't come from anybody that I met later in my life or even from any book that I read. It's really somewhere deeply in my psyche. My parents ingrained in me the idea that life is working out, that you're loved and taken care of. And so don't over worry. Go for the things that excite you. Anything that you're passionate about and love, you can translate into something powerful and positive in this world. And listen to that voice. So it's less of advice from the outside. I think I was gifted with really, really good direction from the onset.
That's beautiful. Rabbi Gersht, thank you so much for coming on. Really enjoyed this.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you, Aryeh. Wish you a lot of bracha with everything you're up to.
I hope you all enjoy this incredible episode with Rabbi Moshe Gersht. Moshe Gersht's story is so inspirational and so powerful. His transformation, his life, and I got so much chizuk from it. I hope you did too. If you didn't subscribe yet, please subscribe. And if you could comment, please, it would mean so much if you comment some feedback you have for us, if you got inspiration from this or anything. A big shout to our viewers at Torah Anytime, 24/6. And if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, please leave a comment below. Rate us 5 stars, comment, you know what they say. It actually does help though, so please do it. It'll help me, it'll help you. I guess it'll help you so you know when we put out more stuff, but it'll mean a lot, so please do it. A big thank you to our sponsors. Be sure to check them out. Thank you so much for listening. Have an amazing Pesach. Remember to try your best to be Jewish and joyful.